Why is the MBA such a powerful accelerator for your career? You know, the best programs, that they're relevant, they're practical, they're impactful, and of course you're going to join this connected global community that's going to expand your perspectives and increase your opportunities. Now, to capture that growth, it's a pleasure to sit down with Sandeep Tada. Sandeep is the Academic Affairs Director for the MBA program at IMD. And we're going to be discussing how IMD is committed to helping you achieve your goals with a very future-oriented MBA. We're joined by Alicia Gong. Alicia was in the IMD MBA class of 2021. She'd had an early career with Goldman Sachs and UBS, transitioned to McKinsey, and now in a leadership role at Nestlé. Lovely to have both of you with us. Perhaps in the current geopolitical context and candidates from all over the world thinking about business school, Sandeep, what is it that makes choosing a top European school like IMD such a compelling choice?
So why IMD being in the heart of Europe is so compelling is because of the very high, basically, the return on investment, both financially, but also from a booster of learning that the candidates can get in this 1 year intense MBA program. In the current geopolitical, scene, Switzerland stays bubble, which is privileged to be in, and MBAs do benefit from it. So it's really an immersive, leadership-focused learning experience with deep personal development. So IMD's MBA program is not only about only giving them the functional and other skills that they need. They are highly necessary, but also the leadership skills, so that the MBAs, once they graduate, they are ready to apply all the fundamental business skills that they have with the right level of leadership skills that they will need to navigate in the world, which is very uncertain these days.
You no doubt had intensity in your early career with Goldman and with UBS, Alicia, but then stepping back and thinking, okay, what's the right next step for me? What was it that encouraged you to look at European MBAs and at IMD in particular?
I think that's actually a really good one. And I actually was really inspired in my mid-20s with a trip in Europe. I was just there for a few weeks, like great tourist moment, but I just knew that I wanted to be in Europe and I didn't know how I was going to get there. And so I problem solved, what if I did a 3-month visa and just, try to study for the CFA, or how can I stay there longer, find a job? And what came like the middle ground was, why not do education there to like get an option to not just study, but also to stay a little bit longer.
And in terms of that experience, I mean, you could have had your books in the CFA materials for 3 months, but you've actually had this extraordinary 1 year at IMD. With all of the things that you expected to find in a full-time MBA program, was there something unexpected? Perhaps even something that you learned about yourself. It's like, wow, and that it felt perhaps distinctly European.
Distinctly European and unexpected. I think you're just being exposed to like so many different people in the class. So yes, there's about 90 to 100 people in the class, but everyone comes from a different backstory, whether it's a culture or diversity part. And I had no idea that this is what I was missing to take the next step of my personal and my professional life. And the personal, it was one, expanding to the rest of the world. And the second is, how do you work with different personalities? And that's how I took that approach.
Well, with your own role, Sandeep, as you think about the curriculum, the academic program, and preparing individuals for leadership roles, we live in a world where the future of work, AI, things are moving so quickly. Who knows where that might be in 2027 by the time individuals, our viewers, graduate from the IMD program. Is it that you're building a mindset, an agility to then be able to adapt to these very fast evolving innovations and pace of change?
Yes, so this is at the center of IMD's MBA program. IMD's MBA program is known for being very agile. So we update our curriculum on yearly basis, and we really make sure that it stays relevant, because IMD's big significant portion of IMD's business is interacting with senior executives. So we really work with top of the pyramid. We help them solve strategic and leadership challenges with the very high quality of caliber of faculty that we have here. And we benefit, the MBA program benefits from it. So these faculty, when they come to the MBA class, they bring that those real challenges to the classroom, bring those executives, those amazing speakers to complement and make the classroom a live case. Having said that, so for this year, of course, IMD's MBA program won the Poets and Cons MBA program, of the year award. It was in, towards end of last year. It's still valid, and that was because we have integrated AI into our entire curriculum. So we have now an approach where we have introduced transversal skills, because this was one of the feedback we are getting from the industry, is that they need MBAs with right set of skills to navigate in the current field. So functional skills are great. Transferable skills help them navigate through all the different courses and help them make sense of it. Few examples are: how do you recognize pattern? How do you quantify strategy, decision making, and strategic presence and presentation, storytelling? So then, how do you tell the story? All these skills are part of the program, and we are using AI tools to make those connections and help. So use the AI tool. So the MBAs receive their grade from the faculty, but the AI tools help them to receive more feedback and follow up on what they're learning, so they can further enhance these skills. So it's fully embedded in the entire learning journey, which is quite fascinating. And what's fascinating about this is how quickly, so of course there was a lot of research and work done last year to put this in place, but also the agility of IMD is really, is shown here, because it was implemented in a record time. So, and the outcomes are really, amazing. MBAs are happy with what they're getting in terms of feedback. Yeah.
Right. Well, lessons from the C-suite, Alicia, or professors with the latest cutting-edge research and perspectives on industry. Is there a class that you remember? It's like, wow, I never thought about it that way, or something that's really stuck in your head, and perhaps that you now use today in your role at Nestlé.
I 100%. I think you can probably list quite a few classes, but I think number one is the leadership classes that you go through, and you actually review the dynamics of, one, the internal journey of like, hey, who are you as leader and who do you want to be? But then also reviewing other leadership and how they act. And I can tell you, in all of my steps, before and after IMD, it's real life of working with other teams, working with leaders, and like seeing how it works for your daily work,
Mm.
and also where you want to go as well. And so I would say is the work definitely resonates. And even if you don't remember everything, you would just have an idea of like, hey, I may have heard this piece in finance, probably want to dig a little bit more, and you know where to start.
I mean, in terms of the ROI that Sandeep was mentioning, you're on a very personal leadership journey. But when you think about ROI beyond the financial returns, are the things that you've learned about yourself, even self-confidence, or sort of your presentation skills, things that almost intangible returns on the investment that you've made.
Yeah, I think there is quite intangible. But I mean, yes, personal is the leader of who I want to be. I always, thought it was one way to find out that I preferred another way, and I needed that year to discover that. But what is really intangible, I think, is the networks and friends that you make through the MBA. Um, just like wine, I would say the relationships post MBA gets even better. And so I'm quite close with a handful of people in my class, and these are the people I talk to every day, every week, and we go on holiday together.
Why is that so powerful? Because of course, there's great studies at the University of Colorado. Is it, IMD in your late 20s, or at a particular time in your life where then those friendships, the connections, that network that you're a part of, do you think that having worked for a few years, you're even more conscious of the value of that?
I think yes, because I feel like, at least for in the US, is you make a lot of your friendships in your first jobs or post university. And I think when you are looking, maybe your later 20s, early 30s, to create those relationships, they're not as easy to make. I feel like you're very settled in one area. You may have different plans in life, and to be coming to like one central place with an MBA, whether it's going to be this one or another one, you're able to create those friendships of people with similar like-minded.
Mm. Right. Now, 1 year, many of the US programs, Sandeep, that run over 2 years. how do you fit everything in? You know, the learning, that networking, the guest speakers, you know, treks, clubs, activities. How do you pack everything into the 12 months?
So, to be very honest, IMD's MBA program has the reputation of being one of the most intense MBA programs out there because, as you very well mentioned, it's a 2-year MBA program packed into one. But that has its benefits because people who come here, they have contracted with their families that they will not be as available as they would wish to be with their friends and family because they'll be fully immersed. So they are literally fully immersed. Alicia, correct me if I'm saying anything that's not
No,
true, but it's like what, 6 days a week? You're still
it's
5 days
your
classes, but you,
primary
yeah. We had some connection issue.
Alicia, you were nodding, and I think
residence.
yeah, it's,
We lost you for a little bit, Alicia. Yeah, you were saying that it's your primary, your secondary
Oh,
residence.
is it
Okay.
better? Oh yeah. No, I would say IMD will be your primary residence. This is how they pack it in 1 year.
Yes, exactly. So, it is a mix of, a lot of things happening. So you will get to meet a lot of amazing high-profile speakers within that 1 year. Great world-class faculty because, our MBAs exposed to same faculty as our senior executives. We don't differentiate. On top of that, they will also have electives to choose from to personalize their learning journey. And with the new program design, we have ramped it up. So the second half of the year is almost all personalizable. And we have also 40% of experiential learning. So MBAs, learn by doing. So of course it is very intense program, but they also get to bond, network, and being so intensively together, really adds value. So what we tell our MBAs is that by the end of this year, you will know a lot of things about your classmates that no one knows about them on this, I think, planet. And they will know a lot of things about you that even your parents, your partner doesn't know. So they get to know each other at a more emotional level, intellectual level during this one intense year. And again, the ROI is really great compared to 2-year US programs because you're back in the job market quickly. So, it's really worth the effort. Yeah.
and in terms of everything that you're learning, Alicia, is there a sort of a feedback loop from those classmates that now know so much about you, from coaches, perhaps from the career management, so that you're thinking, well, how does all of this apply to me, and how can I use it? How are you then able to sort of embed the learning and think about your own personal development?
That's a great question. I took actually a lot of it with me post MBA. I mean, I took the leadership coach, a psychoanalysis with me, even into my first couple of years at McKinsey, because I wanted that feedback of, hey, how am I dealing with these situations as a leader? But then I also took a lot of like my MBA friends along with the journey with me, and I did have regular catch-ups with them, to say like, hey, I'm facing this. Are you also? And it really helped us actually get through our times. Many of us went to consulting, and so we all had very similar, I would say, challenges or happinesses to get through. And I think your feedback goes with you far, far past the MBA.
I'm sure this must be in the mind of the admissions team, Sandeep, as they look at profiles, not just geographically from all over the world, but industry backgrounds. Are you then, as you craft that diversity, thinking about all of those interpersonal dynamics and how that's going to, feed into the learning experience?
Yes, so diversity and internationalization is really a core of IMD's MBA program. We are known to be one of the most internationally diverse MBA program out there. I give you an example of this year. We have 78 MBA for 38 nationalities and 42% female candidates. So we are really happy about that. However, we take that to a next level when we are creating groups because we take their industry experience into account for different group compositions. So we make sure we don't put all the finance experts in one group. We distribute them equally because each MBA will come with their own strengths, right, and add value. And this is so both culturally and from their work background. So we really make sure we leverage that. We mix them as much as possible so they get to interact with other people. The skills that they learn by working so intensively in these group settings is really lifelong because then you can go out there, work in any country, any international organization. You will know how to navigate through those cultural nuances. And also, as most of our MBAs have the Triple Crown change, so they change geography, function, and industry. These skills come really at play, and this you can only learn by doing. You can't really teach them by books. So it's really a privilege to have that. Yeah.
Yeah. Alicia, you successfully landed a position with McKinsey when you first came out of the program. And perhaps, among classmates that were targeting McKinsey, Bain, BCG. But was this the sense of, we're not all competing against each other for one role as you were preparing cases for interviews? Were you all then collaborating and supporting each other to achieve the next steps?
I would hope yes. I would hope the answer is definitely yes to this one because when we were going through the process, when we talked to the consulting firms, they were saying is that, for every great candidate, there's always a spot. And so this took away this competition to say like, hey, if we all get in, that'd be great. But there was collaboration when doing the case preparations from across the class of people I didn't know very well to very, very well. And I think that was very helpful.
Are you seeing shifts, Sandeep? Because there's Switzerland, which already is home to the head office of so many Fortune 500 companies, finance, but there's thriving startup ecosystems in the country. Are you seeing a shift in terms of the positions that people are then moving into coming out of the program, both locally across Europe and then indeed across the world?
So there is definitely a shift. So it started back in more in like 2021, 2022, as people were going more in impact jobs, which we didn't see before because that was the booming period of impact jobs, so societal impact, environmental impact. And so there was a shift there, but then there's also a shift in healthcare towards healthcare. And as you very well mentioned, Switzerland has this very innovative tech scene. So, we are next to the Swiss APFL, which is the technical university among the best in the world, which has a startup ecosystem. And a lot of those startups actually are tech startups. There's also fintech, but purely tech as well, and scale-ups. And now with the new program design, MBAs have the opportunity to do an 8 weeks summer internship, which was not the case before. So, some of our MBAs are taking advantage of that ecosystem that Switzerland has in the field of tech, where they can go test and try with 8 weeks internship, and maybe sometimes they end up working with them as the startup is becoming a scale up. So definitely we do see shift towards more impact jobs, healthcare, but also tech scene, more scale up tech scene. Yeah.
There's an understandable focus, Alicia, on my first job out of the MBA, right? You've made this investment in time and tuition, and securing that first position. As you then yourself made a pivot and took this leadership role at Nestlé, again, were you mindful of the MBA has prepared me for this moment, not just for that first job, but each of these subsequent steps in my career?
So the question is if they did prepare you for the next steps.
Yes. Yeah. So it's not
Okay,
just that
yes, okay.
job out of the
Yeah.
MBA, but
No,
the
I
career you're building.
I think it's even for even the careers, even next steps after this. I believe we always say is that your first career after your MBA is not your last stop. It's only the first stop to your second and third, which are going to be the even longer ones. And I didn't really believe this at first until I did 2 years at McKinsey and realizes that this is not the last stop. Although it's great, it's not the last. And I 100%, I think IMD prepared me for the next step at Nestle and potentially whatever next ones that I have.
Mm.
There's without a
Now,
doubt.
of course, that visit to Europe that you made all those years ago and said, "Hey, this is pretty cool. Could I get a 3-month visa? Could I come and stay?" You found an amazing option with the IMD MBA program. Can you imagine? Have you now got this taste for Switzerland and can see that you're building a life and perhaps a global mindset that you would not have had if you stayed in Boulder, Colorado?
No, I think 100%. I just remember when I got to Switzerland, it was the first time I had ever lived abroad, and I was very nervous, to be honest. I think if you're moving internationally for the first time, it's quite nerve-wracking. But as I spent time in Switzerland, I found it was the most safe place and most welcoming at the same time. Um, and it truly changed my way about how I thought about the world. If you can move one place, then you can move another place. I guess I chose the Middle East after that, which is a little bit different than Switzerland, but it completely changed how I think about life. I know that I want to have a European lifestyle. My partner is here, and I definitely see my career personally and professionally developing in Switzerland.
Mm. And also in the very heart of Europe, even if you were studying and working 6 days a week, any of the downtime, perhaps clubs beyond the classroom or trips to different part of Europe, is that also really contributing to the MBA experience?
Oh, 100%. I don't know if Sandeep also has words for this one, but it definitely contributes to it. I mean, if you have extra time, you are exploring with your colleagues or your family, and this is like what gets you excited to also, go on these weekend plans to the mountains or to go to France. It's just a hop away, and I definitely took advantage of it, and I still do to this day.
How do you encourage Sandeep prioritizing? When there's so many things, an overwhelming number of things that you could do. Is there any advice that you give the students as they arrive at the beginning of the year in terms of not saying yes to everything and really thinking about where you make those commitments?
So we try to give them a realistic picture. First of all, as I said, make sure you contract well with your family so they don't feel that you're ignoring them, you don't love them. You still love them, but you're very busy. And second is like, as they arrive here in January, program starts in January, it's winter time. The first 3 months are really intense because not only they're getting here, getting used to all these different nationalities, new setting, but also their brain is not so they most of them have done their bachelor's or their master's 5 to 10 years back. So to get trained the brain muscle again to absorb all this new knowledge and amazing information that's coming in, it takes a little bit of time. So it's a bit of a cold dip, as I call it. However, they do still manage to carve out some time to go for a ski trip over the weekends in winter, which is amazing. We are right next to the Alps, and Switzerland being in heart of it. As the spring kicks in, they have the impression that the workload is getting easier because they're more used to it and becoming more efficient at it. So it's really good that they get this impression that the workload is getting easier, but actually it doesn't. But they get more used to it, and then they start taking like road trips over the weekends. As you said, it's 5 hour drive from Paris, 5 hour drive from south of France, 3 hour from Milano. So it's really in the center, and really allows them to explore. Because as similar to Alicia, a lot of people like, this is their first time, that they're living abroad, that they left their home country. So it's really a great place to discover other countries. So definitely they do have time to also enjoy and bond.
Well, I can imagine springtime in the Alps, great food, great friends, and you develop a taste for that. So, a very practical question for you, Sandeep, because of course, in the current environment, we're seeing changing US policy. And for a lot of international students thinking, getting a visa to study in the US is clearly not as straightforward as it was even just 6 months ago. In terms of, companies like Nestlé, or both locally, what are then the opportunities beyond the program to create the next steps of your life and secure a visa?
So definitely, it's unfortunate what's happening in US, and that's where Switzerland's strength really shows because Switzerland is a very stable country, not
Mm,
only in sense financially, but also in terms of government policies. There are no sudden policy changes. It's mostly done through referendums where
mm,
people vote. So it's a very democratic system. So it gives a lot of peace of mind to people that tomorrow the policies will not change. If it changes, it's very difficult to change. Everybody has their voice. Um, However, in current, global context, we try to work more and more with employers that are specialized in hiring international profiles. So they do help, and also Switzerland has an appetite for highly talented individuals. So they have like a special visa programs for people who fall in that category. So that
mm.
helps. Um, and then, of course, like it's in the heart of Europe. So, our alums, our MBAs end up in, Copenhagen, in Denmark, in Germany, France. Also, Middle East is booming, when it comes to economy. Asia is booming as well. So really, the idea is to open people's mind as much as possible. And as Alicia said, this is your first job is not necessarily your last job. So do not overthink it. Go and explore. Go out there like Alicia did. She went to the Middle East. Now she's back with Nestle. But we have a very strong career center that helps MBAs navigate those questions. We also hired recently, I mean, not recently, last year, we hired Christian Dumet. He was the head of careers at LBS. And he has helped, bring some new dynamics in how we approach the support we provide to our MBAs when it comes to career. Yeah.
Right. So, Alicia, you took this inspiring step. You thought about, okay, if I go to business school, maybe I could do it in another country, and look what's happened next. So, our viewers, where you were a few years ago, thinking about the right next steps, choices that you could make. My final question for you: advice that you would have for them in terms of trying to decide where to study, heading to Europe, a school like IMD, and going to business school. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, I have two bits of advice. I think the first is just take the time to think about, of course, one, the school, but also what do you want after that? You need to ask yourself the practical question of, do I want to live in Europe or another country that's not my home country? And what do you want to do? And just take it very realistically. And what I mean by this is that if you know that you want to go to, the top consulting firm and in London, you need to consider about what schools that you're applying to and what kind of candidates do they have right now and where do they recruit at? Just think about this on a realistic basis. The second is don't over rely on rankings. I think a lot of people get caught up with, I need to go to like number, 1, 2, 3 school.
Hmm.
But what matters the most at the end of the day is like, do you have the right fit in terms of, do I like the faculty? Do I like the actual like colleagues that I'd be working with or even the alumni network? So
Mm.
I'd say to take a holistic view, and it's not just about the name, it's about more than that.
Right, yeah, because it's as you say, it's going to be your first home for the next year. Um, Sandeep, you know the school so well. So my final, far more personal question: maybe when you walk down the corridor, or you have that breathtaking view of the lake, or you're overhearing conversations among the students, what for you is uniquely IMD as a place, as a culture? What really stands out for you?
So there are three things that really stand out. Is first of all is the real world rigor.
Mm,
So IMD is really very close to the industry. What's happening out there really impacts us because we are helping those leaders and those companies navigate the challenges. So one of the things that's really unique about IMD's DNA is that then that learning come back to the MBA class. So MBA really get the first hand a view on what the challenges leaders are experiencing at this moment and
mm,
how will they navigate that in the future. So when they are going out of IMD, they were not in an educational bubble where they only learn about theory. They know how these leaders are navigating those challenges, so they can then be quite up to speed with those challenges. Second thing is really the deep leadership focus that IMD has. IMD is really focused on, is really part of our DNA, the leadership development, because IMD believes is that the transferable skills and functional skills work really best when you have the glue of leadership skills to really bring it all together. I give you an example. So, for example, peer learning part happens, the class size is small. People get a lot of feedback, as Alicia mentioned, they take it with them as a gift. Uh, the feedback from a coach will help you understand that this behavior was not helpful. But then IMD also provides optional, sessions, 20 sessions with psychoanalysts. So when MBAs are with psychoanalysts, they will understand where this behavior is coming from, where that trigger is coming from, and how they can better navigate it. Because at IMD, believe that all our strengths can be our weaknesses and our weaknesses can be our strengths, depending on the context. So the idea is not to change the unique value proposition we all bring, but to make people more self-aware so they can better navigate. So leadership is the second one, I would say. And the third one is really the human skill and global impact that IMD has, because even though IMD in terms of volume, get exposed to fewer people, but those people have higher impact. So they are top of the pyramid. If we can have an impact on those people, they will then have an impact in their organization. And this is what we do with our MBA program as well. With the average age being 30, they come with experience. They end up in leadership, roles globally. So what we are giving them then gets transferred into where they are working. So the impact IMD has is quite phenomenal for a human size institution. Yeah.
Well, my feedback is that this was incredibly helpful. I think just to be able to share personal stories, also, that the underlying dynamics, that sense of purpose and mission and vision, clearly, Alicia, you're a great demonstration of how IMD sets you up to build both a personal and professional growth. So it's been lovely to be able to capture that in the last 30 minutes. Sandeep, it's always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you both of you for a great session together.
Of course.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank
It
you
was
for
a
having
pleasure.
us.
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah. Take
Bye.
care.